It's a pleasure to be here with you this morning to speak about two topics. Today morning, I am going to talk about effective meetings. So I'm going to lead a discussion on the format of board packs, what many people call board packs, and board papers in order to ensure that we have effective meetings. I'm also going to lead a discussion on best practice in the development and review of board agenda and board minutes. How should board minutes look like? Some of us are sitting on boards where you have 78 pages of board minutes, one meeting, and you're thinking, my goodness, how do I even read this? And then lastly, it is to lead a discussion on best practice in capturing board resolutions and approvals. So, first and foremost, it's important to note that effective meetings result in effective boards, isn't it? Because our work revolves around meetings. But it is also important to note that holding meetings is very important and very expensive. Just think about the time that each of us is spending on the meetings. It's very expensive, isn't it? And even for the organization. And so, because it is so expensive, we must make sure that the meetings add value. But most importantly, that the meetings are enjoyable. As chairpersons, what are some of the ways you can make meetings enjoyable? And meetings have to be enjoyable because if they are not, the day you want to come for a board meeting and you're thinking, oh my goodness, those meetings are so boring. You don't even want to wake up. So as a chairperson, you have a role to make sure that the members enjoy the meetings so that they feel energized to come for the next meeting, isn't it? So what are some of the ways you can use as chairpersons to make meetings enjoyable? Chairpersons, how can you make meetings enjoyable? Or is it just the usual, we come, we sit, we hold meetings, we deliberate, we discuss, we disagree, we go home?
You must enjoy the meeting yourself.
As a chairperson, you must enjoy the meeting yourself. How do you enjoy the meeting yourself?
But of course, you got to involve everybody. That's very important. Sometimes some people, you find boards where there are people that the chairman never ever asked because maybe they don't like each other's face or something like that.
I just look at your face and I know you're going to give me a bad one, so I avoid you.
Yes, it has happened. So those are some of the things, but there are many others.
There are many others. Okay. Other ways in which chairpersons can make meetings enjoyable, please let's share.
I think we should have a kamkuji before the meeting so that we can bond and talk about our families and just get to know each other's activities for the last 3 months, and so that we actually gluten it.
So have a kamkunji, a meeting ahead of the meeting, perhaps a dinner. You will hear in that video. Now, state corporation boards, how do we handle that? How do we handle that? Perhaps a dinner, a kamkunji before the main meeting. How do we handle that? Boards of state corporations. How do we handle that? Is that possible?
No, not sustainable.
Not sustainable, but is it possible? Why is it not sustainable? I like to ask why. And my kids always get upset when I ask why, because I want to understand the root cause so that we can then help resolve the issues. Yeah?
If you have to have like a dinner before, that is for anybody. Like in Kenya, chairman are people who don't have so much money. So your money will run out, and because they are not budgeted for, these meetings are not budgeted from your pocket. I think they are not sustainable because if the number of the board members are, the demands are many, you might have it once or twice, but then not all the time. Here, look at the financial funds. That is why it might not be
sustainable. Prof amesema chairpersons hawana pesa. Ni kweli?
Yeah.
Me, I'm looking at this room here and I'm just seeing money. Think about how you can effectively hold those kamkunjis, hold those dinners. It may not be every quarter, but at least every so often you need to hold those informal meetings.
I think if you have to make a boardroom look good, the first thing you have to do is to look at the room itself. Are you having a nice boardroom?
Right.
Because you find some boardrooms, hata viti yenyewe imevunjika.
Right.
So when the members come, first of all, they are disorientated in the first by just the room itself.
The atmosphere is not
The atmosphere is dark, nini. Even the washrooms are not there. Members have to move kilometers looking for the washrooms. So, to me, what you meet first, especially the room, and even the ingredients there, tuliambiwa jana kuna mayai, kuna mayai mboilo, kuna nyama. Your atmosphere itself makes you think that you are serious. Then, before the meeting, I think, other than meeting the members, you just have to meet the two people who prepare the reports. That is the CS and maybe the MD,
the CEO.
the CEO, so that at least you can explain your members. But I also agree somehow that it's good to have some kind of even tea with your members, sometimes even in the office, which can be catered by the management.
Absolutely. So if we have a challenge of members coming from far, why not a breakfast? So we are starting the meeting at 9. Surely we can have breakfast at 7, right? We can have breakfast at 7. And Chair, what you say about the room is absolutely important. And for you as chairs of those boards, yours is to give amri, si ndio? Amri inafuatwa na nani? CS na CEO. Wafanye hiyo kazi. You just say me, I want a good atmosphere to hold my meetings. And it is for them to find that effective or good atmosphere that allows for your mind to think. Because your mind adapts to the environment in which it finds itself. If it finds itself in an environment that is not conducive to thinking, it will not think. So yours is to give nini? Amri, orders. And then the chair and the CEO will make sure, the CEO and the company secretary will then make sure that the place looks good. So, let's look at the essentials of a valid meeting. I'll run through this very quickly. First and foremost, there must be a quorum. We came in this morning and Karanja said, whoever is present makes a quorum. Where do we get what makes a quorum for you? Where do we get that information? Iko kwa mwongozo? Kweli?
Yes.
Are you sure?
Yes.
Quorum, yes. For you, it is not in mwongozo. Where would you find it? It should either be in your articles or your board charter, because what is in mwongozo is simply a guidance, right? So please make sure that you check what are the quorum requirements for you and then make sure that it is there. Adequate notice for the meeting. And what is adequate notice for the meeting? Yes, please, Chair.
I think that the quorum is also in the act.
It may also be in the act, the enabling statute. If you have an enabling statute, it may also be there. Adequate notice for the meeting. Again, some of those enabling statutes for you, the board charter, Mwongozo will also have guidance on how many days should the notice be given for. If it says it is an AGM for argument's sake, and it says 21 days notice, and I give 20 days notice, can it be challenged? It can be challenged. So as chairpersons, you must make sure that the notice is adequate. The agenda for the meeting should also be circulated in time. Now this one is important. No person entitled to be present can be excluded. We know that some people, sometimes, depending on what the agenda is, we know that Martin is going to come. And Martin will cause so much trouble. We actually don't want him there. So what do, Chair Hannah? We make sure he doesn't get the invite, right? Martin, if he discovered that we actually had the meeting, can challenge that meeting. And there are ways of excluding Martin. I know that his email is martin23, but I intentionally put there martin24@gmail.com. So the notice doesn't go to him. A court of law would ask you, did the notice bounce back? What did you do when it bounced back? So you must make sure that all those who are entitled to attend are actually.
Supposing a member is, I'm asking, there's a case where a member can be out of the country, and as the chairman, you know he is not around. Are you just going to issue a paper that you are invited for this meeting, well knowing very well he is not there?
What do?
You can join virtually.
He can join virtually. Yes. A member who misses 3 consecutive meetings automatically drops off from the board, right? And so, by the time they were going out of the country, they should have told you they were going out of the country and they're going for X number of days, so on and so forth. We cannot hold back the institution because of one person, right? So you need to look at your other documents to see whether they can even appoint an alternate, all of those things. Or they can join virtually, etc. But the notice must be issued to them.
We are aware of situations where the CEO probably can excuse the meeting because probably you are discussing about it.
Yes.
But this was a situation where the chair felt that, just the normal dislikes. You just don't like the CEO and you are feeling that the matter you're discussing, you don't want the CEO to be there. And so he just said, walk out. And you are there resisting the rest of the members. You can't do that, you don't have powers to do that, and so forth. And we couldn't get hold of any law that was giving us was telling this man, you can stop. But those are some of the dynamics. Can the CEO complain?
First and foremost, I hope that you are not arguing in the presence of the CEO.
They are.
They were.
The CEO had already been thrown out.
Or the CEO had been thrown out. So it was sisi kwa wenyewe. Sisi wenyewe kwa wenyewe. And you couldn't make the chair citizens.
The chair was overbearing.
What do we do? Was that a state corporation?
Of course.
If it was a state corporation, that meeting can be challenged.
Yes.
And I will tell you why. Because the CEO is supposed to be in quorum.
Yes.
So unless this matter, yes, if you look at the enabling statute, most likely it will say that.
In that there are activities which we call our rights. And there is this governance that can happen in one which we must consider our rights. But the board members have power to call the meeting, but there is no one. You think that the chair is going in your way. Call the meeting. Because you can't hold a meeting on your own. Number 2, I think issues like that need to be escalated somehow to the appointing authority. Because the business of the board is to deliver the mandate, and that's what the appointing authority has put in there. But I don't think you can deliver it. Because if irregularities are happening in Kula, you have a power to do that.
The State Corporations Act, Section 8, Subsection 2, specifically requires very clear terms that the CEO or his appointee has a right even to advise and even to request his opinion be recorded in minutes. And the subsection before that actually talks of every board member has a right to participate. The Act specifically says the board is comprised of ABCD and the CEO who shall be ex officio board member. So I agree that the CEO can challenge that.
The CEO can challenge that. And if the chair is the one who walks out, those of us who are left and have a quorum can appoint a chair to chair the meeting and we proceed, right? Okay. Yes, please.
Supposing there's a matter on the table and that CEO is conflicted. In that regard, there's nothing wrong with him being requested to go out, not being chased away. Go out and let it be minuted.
Absolutely.
And therefore, I wish to quote that there are many times when you were the chair, when I was serving as your CEO, and Pius Duarte here was serving as a vice chair. And
Vice chair lady.
Yes, and you asked me to leave, especially when you are looking at my appraisal,
Yes.
the end part.
Yeah.
And then the question of salary increase.
Yeah.
We would discuss for everyone else,
Yeah.
all the other members of staff. But then when it comes to mine, well, I'm requested to go out and I go very far and wait, and then it is minuted that at this point,
The CEO
was asked.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I totally agree with you. I mean, in matters where a member is conflicted, including the CEO, the board agrees, and it's usually a board decision. It's not the chair's decision. What I got from our friend there is that it was the chair just deciding to throw out the CEO.
I just want to comment on this because, and that is why we are here to discuss these things, to learn and to ask ourselves what is the best practice in terms of governance for a chair. And in all the sessions that we have been going on, the chair is a critical organ of the organization in terms of holding together the whole and not disintegrating it. And therefore, relationship building is one of the responsibilities of the chair. Ensuring that there's cohesiveness in the board is a key responsibility of the chair. Ensuring that the board, the CEO, and management are all aligned in terms of the strategic direction is still an important role for the chair. So with that at the back of our minds as chair, then we know that these are situations that we should avoid. You know, I was reading somewhere, I cannot remember, that when you are appointed as a chair, you are not given a crown, you know, you are appointed to serve, okay? And if you approach it from that point of view, and you know that you cannot achieve the mandate of that organization without the other board members, and more particularly without the CEO, then I think it behoves on us to ensure that we create a rapport, a very good working relationship with everybody. Thank you.
Let me just focus on this last one. A recording of the proceedings of the meeting. For us to have a valid meeting, there must be some minutes produced. Because I'm aware of boards that decide, now this one we are not meeting, and it's the whole meeting. So can we say there was a meeting? There was no meeting. There was a kampunji, but there was no meeting, right? So for us to say there was a meeting, there must be a recording somewhere. Are we clear on that? And it also goes to, you know, those kampunjis, they might not decide to pay you as chairs, eh? Sitting allowance. Okay, let's talk about a valid notice. A valid notice must be in writing and sent by the authorized persons. So as the chair of the board, we ask, you know, your personal secretary, not the secretary to the organization, your personal assistant, to send a notice for a board meeting. That's not a valid notice. Please note, it's not a valid notice because it's not sent by an authorized person. It must also be in writing. So as chair, you cannot just call your board members and say, hey, kesho tuko na
Mkutano.
inaitwa mtukano. Kesho tuko na mkutano. You can't. It has to be in writing. It must be given to all the people entitled to receive it, and we talked about that. But it must also be unconditional. So you issue a notice, and you say, notice is hereby given of the 23rd meeting of dash dash company limited, which will take place on 23rd of September 2023, on condition that that's not a valid notice. Are we clear on that? So there must be no conditions to the notice. It must be sent using appropriate or approved or documented media. So if WhatsApp is not a recognized and agreed media for your board, you cannot send the notice by WhatsApp. You can send it as backup, but you must use a formal channel that has been agreed. Like email, like what else? Hard copy, e-board, all of those. Yeah? If you want to include WhatsApp, put it in your board chat. Okay. The notice must contain the type of meeting. What is it? Is it a committee meeting? Is it a board meeting? Venue, date, and time of the meeting. Date of the notice. The notice itself, not the date of the meeting. The notice itself must be dated. Okay? And the notice may contain the agenda for the meeting. Why am I saying may? Why am I saying may contain the agenda? It depends on what you prefer. There are some institutions that combine the notice and the agenda. But there are other institutions that send the notice separately and the agenda separately. Any questions on the valid notice?
So when somebody sees the agenda will be circulated in the meeting, is that wrong?
Aha! If I send a notice and I say that the notice is hereby given, blah, 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 the agenda will be circulated in the meeting. What happens? Is that valid or not?
Helicopter.
It's a helicopter meeting now, yeah? Now, I have come across situations where the matter is so confidential that people don't want to put it on the notice or the agenda there. How should we deal with it? How should we deal with it?
We'll discuss whether to adopt the agenda.
We will discuss whether to adopt the agenda, and usually what should the chair do? This matter is very confidential, but what should the chair do if you can't put it down like that? What should the chair do?
Phone rounds.
Phone each board member and say, we are going to discuss this very important whatever we shall table at the
Of persons of persons, you just ask the individual
deliver.
Yes.
Yani, we have feared email so much we cannot even circulate by email. Yeah. Best practice is that there must be trust in the system, isn't it? There must be trust in the system. And ambushing board members with information is not best practice. And so we must endeavor to actually circulate that. Let's look at the agenda. And the agenda, I think there is not too much that should be said around there. But the second bullet there, it is usually developed between the chair, the CEO, and the CS. We have come across boards where the CS just develops the agenda on their own and circulates. Or the chair decides to do the same. Or the CEO decides to do do the same, there's a problem, isn't it? And in fact, one of the other things that the chairs, you chairs in the room should learn to do is to also ask other board members, our meeting is coming up. Is there anything else you would like us to include on the agenda? So that this is our meeting, it's not my meeting, right? I think the other point that I want to emphasize is where the agenda is drawn from. First and foremost, let's not just meet for the sake of meeting. There must be a correlation between the agenda and our strategy, or our strategic plan, isn't it? Why are we meeting? How is it related to the strategy? It must be drawn from the annual work plan. And sometimes it is also drawn from any priority, urgent, or important matters that require the board's attention. These issues may not have been in the annual work plan. They are emerging issues, but they are so urgent or they are so important that we must deal with them. So you can also draw the agenda from there. They are also drawn from previous board meetings. So in the last quarter we met, we discussed an issue and then we said, next board meeting, we will need a substantive paper from management on this issue. That is another issue that can now go into the agenda. And then specific requests from the board or management. So when the chair phones around and then board members say, Chair, I think this issue is so important, let's discuss it. Or management, we need this, can we discuss it? Any other area where the agenda should be drawn from? Those are more or less the areas, isn't it? It is helpful to indicate time required for each agenda item. As chairs, do you use that? No? You just flow? You just flow? And the meeting takes 2 days? This agenda item is likely to take an hour. We only have 2 hours today to meet. And therefore, we will spend no more than this. And the chair should actually call his board members and say, board members, please read your board papers in advance. Because we'll not spend too much time on this agenda item. I want you to raise all the important things very, very quickly. But another practice that FCS Duarte and I have come across is that board members are encouraged to read their board papers in advance and raise any issues they have on email to management in advance. Yes. Why is that helpful? Because management will come with ready answers on issues. But secondly, you will not postpone matters because management have to go and find the information. So this particular board that we know, members agree that board papers are circulated 7 days in advance. 3 days to the meeting. Any member who has an issue writes an email copying all the other board members saying, can management come prepared with 1, 2, 3, 4. Can you see how efficient that meeting can be? Yeah? And let me tell you a secret. Time is money. Truth be told, time is money. The longer you spend in that meeting, the more time you're wasting, when you could be using that time to make more money elsewhere. Right? And we're not going to pay more because you spend more. Am I speaking to somebody? So if we can raise issues and clear this meeting quickly and go on and do other things, it's better for us. Making sense? Okay.
I've seen some organizations are now again dropping the hands for simple reasons. It's also being abused. Somebody can actually quote me verbatim what I said about a certain matter in a board, especially where there is a lot of issues of mistrust and the rest. But I think I wanted to comment on what you are saying.
Agenda.
Reading the agenda ahead of time. And sometimes you have so many papers to read, and somebody is spending 3 days to read papers before the meeting, and they will only be paid for one meeting. So how do you? No, that's what I wanted. That's one of the ones. You want me to spend 3 days going through all the financials of a board?
Yes.
And you'll only pay me for one sitting.
Yes.
So,
And
I'm just
saying-
imagining that many of these people are also running other businesses elsewhere. You're overcommitting them. So that's my problem in terms of.
And particularly if it's a state corporation, we're only paying you 20,000. If it's a state corporation, these are the matters that we have. For state corporations, these are matters that are being considered, I think, by SCAC. I hope you asked him to do that. And I think the matter is now with the cabinet office. They are looking into emoluments for board members. For private companies, these are discussions you have with the shareholders, so that there is a proper remuneration policy for board members. Because let's face it, it's a lot of time. But you would rather spend that time reading and understanding so that you make an effective decision than exposing yourself to legal consequences, isn't it? It's better. One is a lesser evil, I think.
There was a circular which was withdrawn, which had recommended retainer for monthly retainer for board members.
Absolutely.
And some organizations, I think, had received it and implemented it before it was stopped. But I hope that whatever Idimuri said is being at the cabinet desk includes something that can respond to these issues.
Absolutely. Thank you very much.
Well, this is where I speak for the non-profits. And I think this is where they really go out of the way to put in time and a lot of technical input for nothing. And I think this is where boards, the non-profits, sometimes they did mwongozo and they want to get a package also. And I know that I've worked with some of the boards who keep on saying, if we have to follow some of these regulatory processes you are telling us, then it should come with. And I tell them, you're already doing a lot of good. But I appreciate for any technical input, there should be some level of compensation. And hopefully, even if you need 4 days to prepare for that one sitting, so be it. Thank you.
So you have signed on to the board on the understanding that you're giving your service. Yes. So you give that service freely and with a smile. And sometimes even the not-for-profits are expecting you to actually put in money. On top of the time, you also put in money to support the cause. So different strokes for different folks. 2 comments from me, and I'm happy to hear comments from other board members. It means there is a trust issue. It means there's a trust issue. First and foremost, it is wrong for management to say that this agenda item is too sensitive for the board, because they are your hands, they are your legs. How can I even say that my father and mother cannot discuss me? Are you seeing where I'm going? So it is a bit cheeky for them to say that. Maybe what they are saying is that board members are leaking information, and they are failing to say that directly. They should be saying this information is being leaked when it comes through the board. And we deal with the issue of trust in the board. I think if there is trust in the system, all information should be given. And one of my last slides will be on e-board. Once you have put information on e-board, and each board member has a way of signing in, and if they download and forward, there is an audit trail, there should be no issue. Or am I missing something? Do we agree? So I think the management are maybe they went through a bad experience that gave them that feeling. But I think the board should sit down and talk. Is there a trust issue? Is there a leakage of information? And how then do we deal with it? But going forward, we should deal with it and stop it there, instead of just using it as a blanket, treatment for everything that comes. This is too sensitive for the board. What about you? We are the ones who have employed you. So it's a bit of I find it a bit tricky. Okay, this is just an example of a regular agenda. Not spend too much time. We usually will start with director secretarial. That is where you confirm the quorum first. People declare their conflict of interest, because they should not be declaring their conflict of interest before you have confirmed the quorum. And then you adopt the agenda, again having confirmed the quorum. Then you have substantive items. Then you have the confirmation of minutes. Then you have matters arising, so on and so forth. This is what we call the inverted agenda. Many boards will start with confirmation of minutes, matters arising before they go to the substantive items. But many company secretaries now are preferring this, and the reason is we want your brain, when it is still fresh, to deal with the substantive agenda items. On the understanding that the minutes were circulated way in advance, you read them, you gave your comments, and so it will just take a few minutes to approve them. Any question on that?
But most of the substantive issues are in matters arising. How will you confirm them? How will you confirm the meetings first before you discuss the matters arising? Because now some of those issues were already there.
If they were already there, and they have their substantive items, they can still be pulled out of. They can still be pulled out of the matters arising and be put as a substantive item. When you come to matters arising, you simply say discussed as a substantive item. Is it making sense? No?
The problem is,
yes.
For example, assuming Kenya, you're in Kenya and you're discussing a road, and the substantive agenda is that you wanted this, for example, to clear the waves and things like that, and you had discussed that matter in the matters in the minutes elsewhere, and that is when you made a decision that it is going to become a substantive agenda of this meeting. Mm-hmm. Then we have discussed and finished. Then we go to the confirmation of minutes. Oh, now we start talking again about the same.
But there was no money.
No, you don't. No, you don't. If you've discussed it as a substantive item, you simply say, in fact, the matters arising, it's an action list that comes to you. And it has a column that says status. That column that says status simply says substantive item number. So you don't discuss it again. You don't discuss it again. You've done, you are finished.
I mean, they're still giving me a problem of chronology.
I'm with you.
Get me right, as in
I'm also.
last time we discussed the waves.
Yes.
Okay?
Yes.
So we confirmed the minutes that indeed,
yes,
that matter was discussed.
Absolutely.
And we now, whether it is, don't even bother with the matters arising, because it can actually be considered as an appendix.
Yeah.
But confirmation of the minutes.
Yes.
Then now we are saying that we have confirmed that matter. Actually, if a matter is not confirmed, then we cannot really hold anybody responsible.
Yeah.
So we are saying we agree that it is going not to come as a substantive
agenda. Yes.
So now we are expecting it. Even though we have read all this,
yes,
we then can see why it's going to be we are going to have a winning discussion.
Right.
So, I mean, for me, it's about the mental issue. Because we discuss here as a substantive matter, then later we go and just say, in the confirmation, that matter that we discussed, it was because we had discussed it.
Or for instance, for those who are in the Ministry of Health, you agree that you put up a dispensary as a substantive agenda, maybe in August.
Yes.
Yeah. Then you come to the next meeting, there's another agenda saying we buy drugs. Now, you approve that, can we buy drugs? How do you approve? And maybe when you come to matters arising, the dispensary was not even built. So you bring confusion because this drug was supposed to be for that dispensary, which was supposed to start. Now you have already confirmed that you are buying these drugs. Yet the dispensary, when you come to the dispensary level, it was not even
of minutes and matters arising. Your meeting is running for 2 hours. There are instances in which you will spend like the first 1 hour just focusing on confirmation of meetings and matters arising. Because that tends to be like an extension of the meeting that we had before. So you end up spending a lot of time. The way our lecturer is presenting it this morning, or maybe what we do ourselves, the confirmation of minutes arises from reading the minutes. And the minutes were circulated to you earlier before the meeting. So we don't even go through the minutes one by one, because you had already read. What we focus more on is on matters arising. And matters arising, the way we structure it, you go to the previous minutes, you pick every resolution, it's tabulated in a matrix form. Resolution,
Status.
What was resolved, who was responsible, status, was it accomplished, was it not, something like that. But now when you come to agenda number 2, there are substantive agenda item number 1, which might be having a connection with what we discussed before. Now that we had read the minutes, once we get to that, we are talking about a role that was to be done. So it is very fresh in your mind because you read the minutes. So out of reading the minutes, you can connect it with this agenda today. So the confirmation of minutes and matters arising in a meeting of 2 hours will end up taking only 15 minutes or 10 minutes and you are done.
Tunajuana sana, she's a board member of BLIS. Tunajuana sana. She's teaching me. I think she's been teaching me along since I joined BLIS. Very competent, really. I found that format when I joined BLIS. That is the confirmation of the minutes comes real time. But you remember I reversed that, and I said we confirm the minutes on the previous meeting before we talk about anything. The idea I have is that logically, how do you start a new meeting before you conclude the previous meeting that you held? And you conclude the previous meeting that you held by confirming those minutes. And there are occasions when, because of time problems, members have no time to confirm the minutes of previous meeting. So you find some unconfirmed minutes are lying somewhere because it was forgotten because it was not the first item in the agenda. So I don't know. It depends on how best it works for a board.
Yeah. So, Chair, you are absolutely right.
Let me just add
Yes, please.
because your chair is absolutely right. And all the teaching you have been teaching him, let me not go beyond there. My understanding is this. There's no point proceeding to new matters when you have not concluded the previous matters. Matters arising are so critical to confirm that what you deliberated upon previously has actually been accomplished. So for you to proceed on other new matters, and you want matters arising to be 5 minutes, I think, because one, the board resolved some things. It left management to undertake them. Which other particular the board get to know what was actually implemented. And I wouldn't want to go on a new matter before the previous matters have been implemented.
I didn't talk about matters arising. Matters arising can take longer because many of those matters arising require, some detailed explanation, etc. But confirmation of minutes, we should not spend a meeting confirming minutes. I mean, too much time. I think the forum so far. FCS.
Let's look at a meeting from a holistic point of view. And a meeting is not just when you sit. Okay? We have seen a notice has been issued, the agenda has been circulated, the documents have been circulated. So you have gone through all the documentation for that meeting, including the minutes, as well as the matters arising. And if there was any issue you wanted to raise, you have also been advised you can raise it with management before the meeting begins, so that management is prepared with the necessary answers. I think we are looking at this very structurally, 1, 2, 3, 4, but look at it holistically. As a board, you have already gone through the minutes before the meeting and say the minutes are good. And that is why it should not take an hour to confirm the minutes. The matters arising, the management will have included in the board papers a paper on matters arising and the actions that have been taken, what has been closed, what has not been closed, and the progress on those issues. So there's no disconnect at all, whether you start with the substantive items or whether you start with the, and it does not mean that you must close the first meeting because you already have all the information that you need.
It's the flow of events which is a problem.
I still want to stand on my allow me, just allow me please.
Yes, I'm going to allow you, but I'm going to ask Karanja. You have some guidance on this. It will be great to also hear from you.
Yes, I think for me, remember, only confirmed minutes become a policy document. Only confirmed minutes become a policy document. Remember, our business as board members is to make decisions and eventually give out a policy direction. So you're telling me, for example, if in my board we have 10 substantive agenda, we discuss them, then go to our confirmation of the previous minutes. Let me tell you, and this is a true case. In a meeting, in a board that I went and they attempted this, we had 3 minutes that had never been confirmed.
Yes.
Why?
By the time, wait a minute, by the time we are reaching agenda number 10, time has run out, and you cannot discuss anymore, and so the chair says, unfortunately, we cannot discuss these matters, let us have them. What are you trying to do to the management? Then, I find myself in audit. Then the auditor says, Madam, you said this, and then we cannot do because for the last 3 meetings that the board has held, we have still not seen the confirmed minutes. So for me, what I'm trying to say is that let us not just look at the confirmation of minutes as a time consumer, because that is where we are. It consumes a lot of time, let us push it behind. Remember that it's only confirmed minutes that become a policy document. So when you discuss it, please dispense with it as a board, not risk it, because you also hold an institution at ransom. I mean, I cannot stand with this one, I cannot go with it, it must be the way it is.
What Veronica is saying is that you would rather spend the whole day on confirmation of minutes. Don't discuss the substantive item.
There are 2 theories. One we call it the corporate governance theory and the traditional theory. The traditional theory is where you always have the confirmation of minutes and the matters arising as the first item.
Yes.
What we call the corporate governance theory it emerges especially from the West and quite a number of other jurisdictions. What they do, you have them as the last. Now, in most private companies, most of you who have been in listed companies and other private companies, actually this is how it is done. The confirmation of minutes is usually among the last items. In state corporations, however, you may not have the luxury. SCAC has actually specifically directed that you have to have it among the first items. So it is options that we are giving, which you can choose. None of them is, I think the challenge is the amount of time we use. And that's why Dimuri was telling you about the timed agenda. Agenda on confirmation of minutes, you have allocated the time. People receive the minutes in time. Catherine, I think the challenge comes, especially when the chair starts page number 1, and then I note there is a comma being left. We start arguing about center, whether he should be at the end or in the middle for the next 1 year, especially when they are professors.
So what we are saying is, it depends on what works for you. This is one way, that is another way. Whichever way you choose, please don't spend too much time approving the minutes. Because the expectation is that you have read them, you have given your comments, and you can spend time on matters arising, but not too much time on the minutes. Truth be told, if a meeting is going to be effective, it starts from here, the board pack. If you don't have good board packs, there is no way you're going to have effective meetings. But the major component of the board pack is board papers. Yeah? The board pack might include other things like the minutes, the action log, so on and so forth, but there are also the major component is the board papers. The board pack is the key source of information for directors prior to the meeting, and the expectation is that we are all going to read those papers that are being presented to us. It gives us the information that we need to make the decisions that we are being called upon to make. And so management need to ensure that all the relevant papers are included in a structured manner so that the board is able to read, understand, digest, and come ready to deliberate on those decisions. And that those board packs are actually, you can read and understand them. So board papers, and there's a lot of information here, but let me try and go through them. When a board paper, and this is, board papers should also be approved by the chair. So as the chair, how do your board papers look like? The first thing is that each board paper must clearly state the purpose and the request being asked for. How do we do that? You can see that in the title. You can see that this is a request to approve the purchase of land at X amount of money. The resolution being requested is that the board approves the necessary budget or whatever. So it must clearly state the purpose and the request. The board paper should be well researched with the background of the issue, with supporting data, risk analysis. Many board papers don't have that risk analysis. So as a board, you're not clear, you're being asked to make this decision, but you don't know what risks you're being exposed to. It should have implications, it should have options, and this is another area we struggle with. The management gives you a board paper, but they don't give you the options. They tell you we need to purchase an office block, but they don't tell you that we can also lease an office block. However, if we lease the office block, the implications are, so what management do is they put you in a box. This is the decision we want, and there is no other decision. So they must always give you options with pros and cons, and then they can recommend. So that they're telling you, we have looked at other options, but we recommend that we go this way. When you receive your board papers, do you see options? Do you see options? Please start asking for them. Yeah? Start asking for them. Don't just tell us, buy an office block. What are the other options? What are the implications? Why are you recommending this over the other? The other one is that particularly for state corporations, the board paper should indicate whether there is a budget or not. Right? Because you approved a budget at the beginning of the year, but you may not even remember. So let them tell you whether there is a budget or not. The board paper should try to proactively address any questions or issues that may arise. They need to think like the board members. They need to sort of step into the shoes of the board members. And they can only do that when they are working very closely with the chair of the board. They must be circulated in a timely manner. They must address how the recommendations in the board paper align with the strategy, with the work plans, and with the budget. So it should be clearly stated in the board paper. It should be brief. digestible, sufficient detail, and data. But it should also clearly indicate whether the board paper is for decisions or for resolution, for information, for noting, for discussion or guidance. Why is that important? So you open the board paper and the first thing you see is for information or for approval or for noting. Why is that important?
So the board is supposed to take note or actually advise or approve.
Yeah.
So they have already guided you in what decision you make.
Absolutely. And if I am preparing for a board meeting, I am likely to spend more time on a board paper that requires decisions, isn't it? But if it's just for noting, I can put it last because it's just noting. No decision is required of me. Hannah?
I'll give a case study of NHIF because it was in public domain. And the paper came for noting, but it was actually an extension of a contract. But the management said for noting. And the board happily noted.
And extended the contract.
A few months, DCI at the door. And the hard question is, this has financial implications, it has procurement implications. That noting, you are supposed to have declined the noting and changed it.
Absolutely. So, lengthy documents should contain an executive summary, a table of contents, and numbering for ease of reference, isn't it? Because you find that some board papers are 40, 50 pages. And they give them to you 7 days in advance. Even if the only thing that you are doing is reading, surely. It tires you, isn't it? So as chairs, let's make sure that the board papers, if they're lengthy, they contain that whatever detail. The proposed resolution must be stated on the face, in fact, page 1. Page 1 of the board paper should include proposed resolution. And that is important. We are trying to deal with the issue that Hannah also raised. What is the proposed resolution? Do note that the CEO's contract is being extended for right? So the proposed resolution should be there. The content should be adequately summarized and if necessary use appendices. So that the key first 2, 3, 4 pages are the main pages that you want to focus on. And if you need to refer to the appendices, you can do that. They should equip directors to ask intelligent, probing, and relevant questions. So the board papers should not be rambling. Yeah? They should be very specific. They should focus on governance, strategic policy and oversight issues, and steer clear of management duties. It is good to standardize your papers because that aids your reading. So your board paper from finance should actually read like your board paper from HR. Adopt a standard paper. The content is different, but the standard is the same. Okay? Any question on board papers? How long should a board paper be? Approximately 3 pages at most. The rest should go into appendices. But remember what Hannah said, still read them. Selective or excessive irrelevant provision of information. Okay, now this one touches on us. Knowingly using the non-executive director's fear of appearing ignorant to avoid asking questions by use of industries with complicated or jargon-based information. Does that happen? Yeah. So they know that as a director, you're not going to ask what a pig means. For those who know my pig story. And because they know that, they'll keep using the word pig. But they know that we have such an ego as directors that we're not going to ask. And so they hide the information there. So as chairs, please guide management or the CEO that board papers should not have complicated industry jargon so that board members get lost. Do we agree? Absolutely. Okay, why are board minutes written in past tense? Now we come to board minutes. Because because minutes are a record of a past event. That is the reason why they are written in past tense. So we should not have minutes saying, we are now going to discuss A or B. Some key principles, and I'm running very quickly, about minute taking. Minutes are an accurate record of the meeting. They should be an accurate record of what transpired at that meeting. Secondly, minutes are not a record of what was said, but what was discussed and agreed. They should focus on what was discussed and agreed, so that we are not seeing FCS Wambua then said this. Then FCS Karanja disagreed. Then Director Margaret said, finally it was agreed. How many pages are we going to have? Absolutely. Yeah? So minutes should contain decisions made. And those decisions made, in my view, should be clearly even bolded, so that you know the decision that was made. Minutes should contain action items and responsible parties. So that we are saying we agreed to buy a building. Action party, CEO. By when? The time is set there. In the minutes. Minutes should take a neutral position on issues and not judge. The minute taker should not judge. So some do's about minutes, and I'm running very quickly. They should be fair, accurate, conveying why and how and what conclusions were reached in relation to each agenda item. Write the minutes as soon as possible while things are still fresh in people's minds. We meet quarterly. We should ask our company secretaries to give us minutes within how many days? An hour? No. 1 week, yes, thank you. 1 week, so that while things are still fresh in our mind, otherwise if they come 3 months down the line, you know, Martin is saying, no, this is what we said. I'm like, Apana, I cross and says this is what we said. So they should be written up as quickly as possible. We should use plain, simple, and clear language and be brief. Not those complicated terms which some of us have to look for a dictionary to understand, right? We should use complete and straightforward sentences. We should use quantitative statements rather than subjective ones. So if you want to say 30 degrees, say 30 degrees centigrade, not high temperatures. Because high temperatures is just, it's not clear, isn't it? We should use short sentences, preferably with less than 25 words, so that the message is one. Okay? Sorry?
25 words is many.
25 words is many actually. The shorter the better. Use, record the message, not the words. Not the words. And then the chairperson should review the minutes before circulation to members. The chairperson may, approve for circulation. They are circulated, then they are ordinarily confirmed at the subsequent meeting. Once they are confirmed, as chair, please initial each page. Each page where your signature does not appear, please initial. And you know why? Yes. See, they'll just disappear. Yes. Please initial. Please don't use people's names except for dissensions, for motions, and for tasks. Director Mary said X. Director John disagreed. Don't include your own opinion, personal opinions or interpretations or judgmental phrases like the board gave such valuable comments about this issue. Valuable to whom? It's It's not part of the minute. Don't use the verbatim style. Don't be ambiguous. You know. Don't use slang or slogans. Don't use different terms that mean different things. Salary and pay. One paragraph says salary, another one says pay. We don't know what we are talking about. Yeah? Be careful also, something I haven't said there, be careful with punctuation. She bathes, and dresses the baby is totally different from she bathes and dresses the baby. Do we agree? She bathes, and dresses the baby. She bathes and dresses the baby. Totally different meaning. So please let's be careful with punctuations. If people want to change the meaning, they can play around with punctuation. Are we clear on this?
What is more specific?
Which
Is
one?
it 8 kilometers an hour or high speed?
High speed is, if these minutes were to come to a court of law, we would struggle.
Yes, that's what we say.
So we would rather use 80 kilometers per hour.
The second is there.
Okay.
Maybe do that with the opposite.
Okay, fine. Don't be ambiguous. In other words, don't say high speed instead of 80 kilometers per hour. Contents of the minutes, they should have the title, they should have names of persons present, absent, with or without apology, and in attendance. They should be there. The mode of attendance, if some people are attending physically, others are attending virtually, indicate who is in the room, indicate who is attending virtually. Each minute should be clearly numbered. Each minute should address a specific agenda item, and the numbering that you adopt, just going back to that, should be an easy one. Some people choose to base it on the year, minute 1 of 2023, and so on and so forth. It depends on the style you have chosen. The signature of the chairperson and the date of approval should be there on the minute. Each minute should include a brief background of the issue, summary of deliberations, rationale for decision taken, and then the decision or the agreed action. Where a decision is made by a casting vote, essentials, abstentions, and use of casting votes should be appropriately recorded. And particularly if somebody asks to be recorded as having dissented. And please, they are only recorded if they ask. If they don't ask, they are not recorded. Okay? Where an earlier resolution or decision is suspended or superseded or modified, minutes should contain a clear reference to the earlier decision. So that we say the board decided to reverse its decision made on this particular day. So in summary, the minutes should be complete but concise, they should be free from ambiguity, they should be impersonal, and they should be clear. Sometimes we use resolutions, and these are decisions of the board, may either be recorded as resolutions or a narrative clearly indicating the decision that was taken. It really depends. Some people will insist on resolution, some people will just talk about the decision. And the best practice is to include the resolution in the relevant board paper. And it is best practice for you chairs of boards to summarize what you have agreed. So that the chair says, board members, this is what we have agreed for purposes of the minutes, so that it is clear we don't argue about it when the minutes come out. If your constitutive documents allow circular resolutions, they should clearly say how those circular resolutions should be made. In other words, for example, they should be signed by everybody. If one person decides they don't want that mode, can they object, so on and so forth. There should be clear rules around that. Resolutions may be actioned immediately after the respective meeting is over. So, goes back to what you were saying. Sometimes, and this is where the chair's role is very important, a decision is required. And if we have to wait for the minutes to be approved, we have to wait for 3 months. which means no action can be taken until after 3 months. So really this is where the guidance of the chair is very clear, and it can guide management in terms of, are they very clear on that decision? There is a difference between ratifications versus resolutions. Ratifications can be used where, for example, you're not able to meet, decisions have to be taken, and then when you come into the board meeting, you then ratify that decision that was taken. Great. Implementation, and I'm coming to the end. Implementation, of course, it's by management. The role of the chair is to make sure that implementation is going on, so that by the time we come to the next meeting, we can clearly see what actions have been taken. The action log has been prepared and action has been taken. The action log is very important because it helps us track what has happened in between. The board and technology, there are various technologies that you can use, and I want to recommend that you actually adopt this instead of paper, because they are very useful in terms of even reading in advance of meetings. Many of these, you don't have to wait for all the board papers for you to start reading. As they upload them, you can start to read. It's very easy to make decisions online, so on and so forth. So if you haven't considered technology, I think it's time that you did that. Great. When you get the slides, and this is small, I just gave you an example of a board paper, how a board paper looks like. At the top, we have the title, we have the agenda item next, then we have the required action, then we have the proposed resolution, we have the purpose and content, then we have the background, we have issues, strategic implications, financial implications, then we have risk analysis, legal and compliance, management responsibility, options, recommendations. Then the CEO must sign the board paper, because all board papers, irrespective of who they are prepared by, are ultimately owned by the CEO. Okay. That is just an example of a circular resolution. Again, when you get it, you will see clearly. You have the name of the company there. It says unanimous resolution, then it says we, the undersigned, and then the names of the directors, and then the certification by the company secretary. Great. So, a very, very short video, then we go for tea.
The relationship between the board and the management team is just that. It's a relationship. And I think where it sometimes falls apart is when that relationship starts to break down, or you start to treat it as more of a business meeting. So a lot of, I think, the advice around how to prep for a meeting ties to that relationship aspect. You're gonna want to make sure that you know who your board members are. You need to know what they care about.
I think the most critical elements of the relationship between a CEO and board director are around development of mutual respect and trust.
Yeah.
And it builds over time, but like every relationship, business or non-business, it happens one-on-one. It doesn't happen in a group setting. Many of the aspects that will drive a good board meeting are established well in advance of the board meeting itself. I think it's very helpful when a CEO sets an expectation for all board members right at the beginning that we will send you out the information in adequate time for you to read it, but we go in on the morning of the board meeting expecting that you have read it. And it's a small but very powerful point, and it makes for much greater efficiency on the day of a board meeting.
Before the board meeting, there's definitely some tricks of the trade to get the board members more engaged, and also an opportunity for management to engage with the board. A lot of companies do board dinners the night before. I found it particularly effective because if there's an authority issue you want to just get on the table, it's a nice way to do that in an informal setting. Surprises don't end well in board meetings. It's never going to give you the outcome that you want.
The way I feel about the board pack, particularly for an early stage company, is that they don't have people who are full-time engaged in putting this together. The CEO and indeed the board should be as pragmatic as possible in terms of determining what goes in the pack. And the ideal pack will be largely composed of materials that the company is using themselves on a week-to-week, day-to-day, month-to-month, whatever it is. Sometimes it takes a number of board meetings before the package has been set. No board pack looks perfect at the first board meeting, but 3 board meetings in, you've probably gotten into a place where, again, you can take it from there and it's consistent from that point on.
I think to keep the board meeting on time is pretty critical.
I've been in one board in particular, I remember, where they had a ban on phones. And it took us a while as a board to coalesce around that. But actually, it's a very good rule. What you want to have is energy and focus around the issues that you care most about as the CEO. And I think setting the table right at the beginning of the day, here's what I'm happy about, here's what I'm concerned about, here are the 3 or 4 things that I want to be able to take away from today. I'm going to try and get you out of here by 4 o'clock. Is there anybody that doesn't work for? Because if it doesn't, that's fine. We'll work around it. But I want to make sure I hit all of these things while everyone's in the room.
Most people after a long board meeting want to leave. They want to leave. But the follow-up is important, I think, for a couple of reasons. One, it allows the management team to clarify anything that might have been misunderstood in board meetings. But I think board members also appreciate the follow through because it makes them feel important and their input feel important if there's something promised.